afternoon. After the sumptuous lunch, we are once again together for a vibrant session, moving on from the consent management and data processing, then traversing the journey towards the cloud computing. Now we are with the specific session on financial worth or monetary worth of the valuation of the data concerned. So we have two prominent speakers for this session, the fireside chat it is named as. Navi sir and Mr. Subrayadu too. Navi sir is a highly prominent face in this, the whole discourse that we are talking about. I invite both the speakers onto the stage.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible to all. Okay, thanks. So, thanks for everyone. This is the tough session post-lunch. To keep you awake, we thought we'll keep a topic which is slightly different from the regular security or, in technology or topics. What we have is about valuation of data assets. Before we jump into that, let me tell you a little about FDPPI and Navi sir. The Foundation for Data Protection Professionals in India, or FDPPI, is a not-for-profit organization into training on privacy laws mostly for working professionals with at least 3 to 4 years of work experience. And I started my privacy journey, maybe not many people may be knowing. I started my privacy learning journey with FDPPI and with Navi sir. So today it's an honor to have him in front of me. Navi sir, of course, is a well-known, recognized, respected figure in the world of data privacy in India. And maybe, I don't know how many of us know, in FDPPI we know because we have CSA Bangalore and other people also here. Navi sir was the one who took up the first post-IT 2000 cyber fraud involving banks case, the ICICI Bank case. He pursued it all the way till the Supreme Court. And we know him by that Uma Shankar case. Please, those of you who don't know about it, if you go to Google and search about the Uma Shankar case in ICICI Bank, you'll know the exact details and the issues that were there and what Navi sir took it up. Now, this data assets valuation also comes at the backdrop of a standard called Data Governance and Protection Standard of India that Navi sir has propounded, spearheaded, and he's been propagating it for almost 2 years now. Valuation of data assets is also an integral part of this Data Governance and Protection Standard of India, DGPSI. And he talks about it extensively in this Guardians of Privacy book that is recently published. And I found it extremely valuable. I've been associated with Navi sir for about 3 years now, and I keep hearing him practically once every fortnight on the topic. But even then, the depth and the clarity with which things have been explained in this book was actually fascinating. So I thought, why not use this opportunity to share some of the nuances of the topics that he's talking about in this book, in particular, data valuation, assets valuation. So Navi sir, the first question that I have for you is, see, you've made valuation of data assets as one of the 50 model implementation specifications which is an integral part of DGPSI. So which means if an organization wants to say that it is DGPSI compliant, it is in some way necessary for them to value their data assets, right? Now, ordinarily, the tech professionals don't think of valuation. And when they talk about protection, they might talk about tools and a lot of stuff. But the thought that valuing data assets and putting a number, a dollar value to data asset does not come to our minds, right? So what made you think that this would be useful for the data security and information security and incorporate it formally within DGPSI?
Thank you, and good afternoon, friends. It's really a privilege to share some of my thoughts with all of you, and particularly with the questions which Mr. Subrayadu has prepared to raise on me. Fine. I must say that I started my career as a banker, and therefore the mental thought of looking at everything with the financial or monetary value was inherent in that upbringing in the bank. In fact, one of the reasons why Uma Shankar case happened was because I was an expert in banking law. I could integrate it with Information Technology Act and try to provide some kind of a solution, which at that point of time in 2008, no lawyer was able to essentially do. Fine. Now, when it comes to data-related activities, one of the perspectives is, of course, the lawyers. Say GDPR, okay, lawyers will be looking at it as a law. Technology people have been looking at these things from the point of view of technology. But behind these people, there is a company. And company has got managerial people. CEO is also a managerial person. Now, what is his perspective on data protection law or data as an asset? Obviously, he has to look at data as an asset. People have been telling that data is oil and all those things. The concept that data has got value has been widely accepted. But it is just vague. Data has got value, everything has got a value. Okay. But how do you bring in the attention of the top management to the data protection investment, ROI? People will immediately ask ROI. Finance people will ask ROI. If you say you want a new system, you want to appoint a new data protection officer or invest in that, the first thing you have to convince your finance department is what is in it for the company. Why should I spend, say, on an executive with, say, I don't know what is the salary range today, but it will be, let us say, 50 lakhs or more per annum, even for a mid-sized company. So therefore, I felt that without the top management having a view that what I have is a valuable asset which has to be protected. See, if you take insurance, if you buy a Benz car, then you will know that I have got this much of value, I have to insure it, I have to take full insurance kind of a thing. So the realization that there is a value to an asset is essential for investing in any protective measures. That is one of the reasons why I felt, maybe you can call it as a managerial perspective of data. As against the legal perspective, technology perspective, I am looking at the managerial perspective of data. Under that, everything starts with the value. So today, people are not talking of it, only hackers are talking about value of data. Is it not? Because the ransomware demand comes with the valuation. Okay? And if you go to dark web, you get a whole menu list of which data costs how much. Okay? It's very interesting to see passport data of India, passport data of some EU member. That is $5,000, Indian is $1,000, something like that. So you can actually do a research on why dark web has a differentiation in terms of value of comparable data. Okay? So when, in fact, one of the things which we know that when some of the companies went into, say, merger, I will make a mention of this example also. Sometime back, I had a lot of discussions on this Net4 India issue. Okay? And earlier, of course, the CIBIL issue. These are the two things which have troubled me a lot. What is that issue I was talking of? CIBIL has now become TransUnion CIBIL. You are aware of that. I was a banker, so I know that when CIBIL was formed, Reserve Bank convinced all the people that there is a need to reduce NPAs, therefore there should be a sharing of information between banks. Therefore, we have a system whereby banks will exchange the information. At that time, this concept of privacy was not there. Nobody asked how can, say, Indian Overseas Bank share the data of its customers with, say, CIBIL, and another company, State Bank of India will share. Where is the consent? Okay. They passed a law and everybody believed that bank is a trustworthy organization, we gave it. Now, at that time, 90% of shareholding of CIBIL was held by banks and 10% was private sector. Everybody was okay with that. Now, 90% shareholding is with a New York-based listed company. 10% is with Indian banks. In that scenario, the value of data has been passed on to TransUnion. And that value is more than 500 million sets of data, which in the dark web costs about $1,000 per set. Okay, because it is name, address, everything, plus transaction details for last 2 years or 3 years, which can be used for profiling and other things. So I felt that this is cheating the public. whoever is responsible, RBI is responsible or somebody like that. So it troubled me a lot. Then this Net4India thing came. Net4India was one of the most important, I say, domain name registration companies of the year 2000 and others, when we first started in, maybe even earlier, 1990 is when India started its journey in internet. Now, it went into liquidation some time back. 100 crores was the loan default to State Bank of India. They initiated the NCLT proceedings. And suddenly, the servers of this company was seized. They took the building, everything, and then felt that it is insolvent, and then took action. All the customers who had registered our domain names, we got affected. In fact, I don't know whether even today I have been able to release all the domain names. I felt that when I looked at the domain name customers of this company, they had about 70,000 to lakh of customers. Each of us were having some domain names, about 3 lakh domain names. When you register a domain name, you almost register it for lifetime. So every year you keep on renewing it. That was the data asset which Net4India had, which NCLT did not value at all. They valued the building, they valued perhaps the sale value of the computers, but nobody valued this data. So more than 100 crores worth of data was scrapped. So I felt that this happens because there is no visibility of data value with an organization. So when we were looking at PDPSI, that is the Personal Data Protection Standard of India, one of the things I added there is this data valuation concept. I know that organizations at this point of time are not valuing the data. We have also been discussing with the valuers, chartered accountants and others about the various difficulties in valuation. But still I wanted it in the framework because I wanted companies to ask a question, what is this you have said, data valuation? Please explain to me what is data valuation. Okay, at the end of it, the company has always the discretion to say that, okay, at this point of time, we don't have data valuation methodology. I will, as an auditor, take note of it. But still, that question has to be raised. That is what we did about 2 years back, and it continues in our current framework, which is the Data Governance and
yes.
Protection Standard of India.
Yeah, in fact,
Okay.
let me also update some of our audience members here that if you go into this book, Guardians of Privacy, there is one specific chapter dedicated to valuation of data asset, and I want to ask you some questions around that. What Navi sir has done is, he has proposed a certain modification to the normal valuation procedures. I'm a registered valuer, I do a lot of valuations also as well. And when I read through that chapter, I felt that, some of the nuances were very well captured in that methodology. But interesting thing that I want to ask you about is, you have proposed a 2-step methodology there. In step 1, where you say is that the regular valuation method that valuers will adopt to arrive at what you say an intrinsic value of the data assets. On top of that, what you propose is that you multiply the output of step 1 picked up by a suggested value multiplier matrix, where you have given a 2x2 table, where the columns and in the rows, you have certain categories of data, and you've suggested the multiplier by which it should be multiplied, the output of step 1 should be multiplied by that, so as to arrive at the total value of data, which according to you have proposed that model. Now, you also mentioned that care needs to be taken that in some cases to avoid duplication, because in step 1, in certain cases, the multiplier that you're talking about might already be incorporated in step 1. So who's doing that procedure has got to take care of that. So this interesting methodology that you say, who do you think are the primary beneficiaries of this entire method? And particularly in the context of all the information technology leaders that we have here, suppose let's say CSO is going and trying to convince his board about, a budget, for example, right? I need so much of a budget to value my data assets and all. So besides them, who are the stakeholders, and in what way do you think would they be benefited by this data valuation methodology, if you could tell us?
The CFOs and cost accountants, I feel, will be benefited. Why? Because when you ask for cost of an asset in a manufacturing company, you go to a cost accountant. Of course, in many cases, chartered accountant may be able to do. Where there is more intricate assessment required, a cost accountant has to look at what is the cost of creation of the asset. Simplest terms, it may be cost of acquisition. Okay, if there are some assets which I buy it out, and then I know the cost of acquisition. But when some assets are used within the organization, like you take the raw material and you have a part of it as goods in process and then the finished goods, when you want to value that asset, you need to make assessment at different stages of that asset life. Similarly, in the case of data, you take personal data, which is what is more important. You acquire some personal data from the market, like you have a web page and you have one form in which name, address, etc. you have put. It comes to you as the basic information set. Then you have an AI engine. You try to do some manipulation or say some assessment. You create a profile out of that. So you have a value-added data. Now this value-added data may be consumed within your organization so that you can tell your marketing person, instead of spreading your marketing budget to all the people, use this AI model, send only whatever marketing messages are there only to these people. Or some companies, which are digital marketing companies, may actually sell that data as a finished goods. So you have a cost of acquisition, cost of enhancing the value through various processes, which if you take different stages, it will be like work in progress, and then there is a market value. Okay? So value here can look at this as one aspect, cost of acquisition as one parameter of valuation. Normally accountants take cost or market value, whichever is lower. Am I correct?
Right.
Okay, because that's a conservative form of accounting. So there is a market value for an asset also. Now, the second part of the question which you asked, that you have to look at this market value. See, when you look at the market value takes into account what is the worth of the asset from the market. It has got no relation to the cost. It may be less than the cost, it may be more than the cost.
Correct.
So if an accountant is adopting the market value approach or a revaluation approach, say many of the cases like gems and jewelry, every year we try to revalue because you cannot take the cost of asset purchase and you cannot take depreciation kind of a thing because the value has to be revalued at each point of time. So market value sometimes incorporates the value as perceived by the market at a particular point of time. What I have given in the matrix there is, if you use the cost of acquisition as a criteria, which perhaps may be the easiest form of valuation which even a normal chartered accountant can do, because I have a department. That department's role is only to collect information. So all the fixed cost of that department and the direct cost of that you can load on, and you can create the cost of a data collection department in case you have something like that. You can arrive at the cost of the data. But in personal data related issue, what happens is, if the data is 1 year old, it has got a value.
Yeah.
If the data is 3 year old, many of the data protection laws, like India says, after 1 year you have to take your consent once again. What does it mean? After 1 year you have to scrap the data, which means that the value of the data changes because of the elapse of time. Okay. In the case of financial data also, you have got a credit card data. If it is 5 years old data, it may have no value because people would have already changed their credit cards. So therefore, there needs to be certain additional parameters which have to be taken into account by way of one, depth of data and the width of data. What I mean by depth of data is when you say personal data set. A personal data set can be name, email address, mobile, let us say 3 parameters. It may include, say, an Aadhaar number, PAN number, etc. A depth will increase. Maybe it will have a medical profile or something, it will be further higher. So the value of personal data set depends upon the number of parameters associated in that data set and this time kind of a factor. So that is why I felt that a matrix kind of an approach needs to be superimposed, particularly if you use cost of acquisition method of valuation.
Okay. And I think somebody also mentioned that perhaps whenever the data protection people approach their boards or the decision-making authorities, revealing the value of the asset that they are wanting to protect might prompt certain people to be a little more easy in loosening up their budget strings or purse strings and giving more budget, and in that sense help the cause of the info and security professionals who are sitting in this room here when you approach your boards and all. So, yeah, and one more thing that I noticed about that is you have mentioned a slightly different method for valuing asset for platforms like Twitter and Facebook. So effectively, what you're saying is, if I have to be State Bank of India and I'm valuing the assets of my consumers and their history, there is a certain approach that can be adopted. But if there were to be a platform which is valuing its asset like Twitter or Facebook, there are certain modifications are required. What do you think are the drivers of this thing? Why are
Okay.
what's the difference between the two?
See, in assets also, we have got fixed assets, we have got current assets, kind of a thing, depending upon the way it is used in an organization. Okay. Likewise, what is Twitter and Facebook? They collect a lot of third-party data. When they collect third-party data, they create that whole platform, you call it as data lake or whatever is that, and use that for advertisement purpose. The more number of tweets which are there, the value will be higher, pay-per-click can be higher. So there, it is not that that individual piece of data acquires higher value, it is because the aggregated set of values, which is 1 million, 2 million, 3 million data, generate that much of advertising revenue. It happens in all portals. If you take navi.org kind of this thing, we just keep on putting some information. The more number of articles are there, the more would be its advertising value. So their data is more like a fixed asset. It is there, it does not change its character, but it yields revenue. Whereas in a normal data analytics company or a big data company, you capture some data, you change that data into another form. You don't keep that data and give an advertisement on that. The data itself, which was 100 rupees for acquisition, becomes a 150 rupees value because you added some additional information or even pruned something and removed a certain thing, or maybe deduplicated the data or something like that. Now that changes the value of the data itself. That is more like this raw material getting converted into finished goods kind of a thing, whereas the Twitter kind of data is like a fixed asset which does not change, which remains as it is, but generates revenue for the organization. Whereas in the second category, it is like a current asset which gets consumed and it loses its identity, but it becomes something different. So that is why there are two different kind of data. Even if you take Twitter, Twitters of yesterday are more valuable than Twitters of 1 year back. Okay. But can you make that as a general rule? We never know. The first tweet made by that person, owner of Twitter.
Jack Dorsey? Or?
Jack Dorsey, it was auctioned. And it created a value of its own. So sometimes vintage value may be there for certain data, but may not be always. So when I say that data, when it gets old, in personal data, it loses value, there may be something like that, this thing. For example, somebody becomes a celebrity today. 10 years back, he was not a celebrity, but he has made a tweet. Now that acquires value because he became a celebrity today. Good or bad. If it is a bad tweet, it will hurt him. Or if it was a good tweet, then the people will say that even when this person was a student, he had this much of social consciousness. I can create something like that. So these are the complications involved in data valuation. I feel there is a need for this matrix to take care of some of this by way of weightages to different kinds of data.
Great, sir. And I think also you mentioned that at times certain posts get retweeted by a certain number of times, certain posts get more likes, certain posts get less likes. So these are also drivers of value of data assets if you're holding them in your platform. So these are good tips that all of us can carry back so that tomorrow if we are going back to any of our management, asking them for certain budgets, or just answering the question that why should I spend so much of money, having a dollar amount of the assets in front of you would be an important useful for you, because I read somewhere that, you get Fort Knox like security because of the worth of the gold that is there inside Fort Knox, right? Imagine if you have to be responsible for the security of all the gold in Fort Knox, but you never knew the value of the gold that you're storing, right? It would not be possible for you to get the kind of budgets approved the way you do it. And I think that's what Navis is trying to do simply with regard to data assets in this digital economy. So largely, I think there is a slide I had put in, if you could. If you could just move forward a slide here, please. Sai? Yeah, okay, here. Maybe I'll just move my chair a little to the left side so you guys can see here. So the valuation of data assets, as you see, is a part of the larger piece which is known as the Data Governance and Protection Standard of India, or DGPSI. Now, Ramesh will talk more about it tomorrow, but what we see here is the Data Governance and Protection Standard of India. A lot of people think that, if you're ISO 27001 certified, perhaps you will be adequately covered to say that you're compliant to the DPDPA. That's not true. Okay, now you add on top of that 27701 privacy information management systems. So people might think that, this is also adequate. But what the Data Governance and Protection Standard of India, as propagated by Navi sir, tells us is there are a couple of other gaps also, which maybe perhaps Navi sir briefly, over a period of 3-4 minutes, you can explain to the people. But this was to pictorially tell you and convey the message that what exactly are the extra steps that you need to do in order to be compliant with DPDPA, even if you are an organization which is both ISO 27001 and 27701 certified. And data assets valuation is part of the entire bouquet of products that we're talking about. Navi sir, a couple of...
I'll start with this data governance thing, which is very relevant. In fact, 2-3 years back when we introduced PDPSI, more than 3 years back, I just introduced it because of the logic which I said. I want it to be visible to the management, so that this is a problem which every security person knows. CISO or somebody, when you go for a budget, your CFO or the CEO is not convinced about the need for that budget. I have been handling the cybercrime cases for a long time, so I keep hearing about this, about IT people telling me, I already told my management that we wanted to do this, but at that time they refused because of budget and other things. So that was the consideration at that time. Recently, there has been a draft guideline or standard which has been issued by the Bureau of Indian Standards, okay, adequacy of data governance and data management. A public consultation has been held and it is now in the final stages of being released. What is the objective of that? They have stated, this is a data governance objective. In a company, today we talk of data-driven organizations, okay? Say earlier we used to talk of data being used for better decision-making in a company. But now companies are not satisfied with just better decision-making of the data. Data has become the driver for all their activities, including products. Say you go for a 3D printing, a product comes out of data. Okay, when you pass it through a particular process. So data-driven companies, this BIS standard says, one of the objectives is to improve the productivity of data. How to make data more valuable. This will be one of the concerns of the CEO. So he may appoint a chief data officer for that purpose. See, this chief data officer, these designations in companies are very, very confusing. Many times they use one designation for another purpose. This chief data officer, if there is a company, I am going to tell him, I will give you an asset. Data is an asset. Now tell me how much money I can make out of it. This is what we call as data monetization in privacy. People don't like when we use data monetization. That's why in data protection, in this framework, apart from this freeing of value, we have said data monetization policy is one of the suggested policy requirements which we have said. Whether
Yes.
you like it or not, if you don't want, you say, I don't want to monetize data. I have got no problem. So that is one of the special features of that. Now coming to this better known frameworks, ISO 27001 and 27701, the objectives for which these particular frameworks were developed were totally different. I think even today I was hearing somewhere about if I am already, I think some questions came up, if I am already compliant with the 27001, whether it is okay. Okay, I don't know where I heard in this or other these things. See, the question I ask is, today, let us say, analogy if you take, if you are selecting a team for T20 India, will you select Sunil Gavaskar as the opening batsman? Sunil Gavaskar has been one of the best batsmen of our era. People like us, we will never forget him. But that was at that time. Now today, tomorrow, if there is a T20 match, I will take him as a commentator, but not as a player. Likewise, 27001, in a particular context, was the best framework, may continue to be the framework in that format. Like you today have test players different and T20 players different and so on. Fine. So that is where we felt that 27001 is not sufficient. Similarly, 27701, which adds some PIMS aspects, again may fall short of requirement because that is GDPR oriented. Who is taking care of DPDPA? So we created this particular DGPSI, which is directly hitting the
Yeah, and in fact, what I noticed is data valuation and valuation data assets is also part of the draft BIS standards of data governance. So I think to kind of wind up, what we are saying is your approach that you propagate in the Guardians of Privacy and also as DGPSI, treating privacy as a data governance problem, and that this standard DGPSI will not only enable you meet the information security requirement, but also as the requirements of the DPDPA 2023. With that, I think we leave the floor open to questions, and if you have
one final word I wanted to add.
Yeah.
Taking this into understand this thing, we have today, as of the Data Privacy Day.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about
No,
data trust
it's
score.
okay.
Yeah.
We,
Data trust
in
score.
FDPPI, we have tried to launch a new service called WebDTS, which I think we have already shared this thing. The idea is that it also represents our DGPSI approach in a different way. We are looking at a company opening a website and inviting visitors to come and see what I am doing. This is the first corporate website objective. Okay, subsequently, a website can do so many other things. For this particular functionality, which I call as a process, you receive some information. We are trying to say DPDPA compliance for website visitors. That is personal data of website visitors. We have created a service which until March 31st, we are offering that service as a free service to companies, any companies which wants to use that. We will do our assessment over about 30 different points and then give a DPDPA compliance assessment. So that is part of today's special offer, as well as it is part of the DGPSI framework.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we will say a little more on that process-centric approach of DGPSI.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you noticed that in the older version of 2019 version of the privacy bill, data trust score was mentioned as a requirement which got dropped out in the latest one. It's not there in DPDPA, but it's been written under DGPSI. Yeah.
So we want to guide the ministry. If the ministry wants to drop off, we don't mind. We will try to be more giving that measurability of this thing. That was the concept.
Okay.
We have just written.
Yeah. Do we have time for Q&A, or we've consumed that time as well? And
Yeah, we have.
Thank you.
So quick question, sir. So since now we are talking about data valuation, can it be brought under the company balance sheet? If so, how do we? If so,
See, until the accountants agree, it cannot be brought into the balance sheet above the line. But it can be brought below the line. How? You can put it as a contra item, you can put it as a note. So I feel that is what is going to happen immediately until accountants and accounting standards accept a common method of, say, valuation.
there is one question from online. Is there any law or regulator approval in India for organization to sell information or data or PII? Is there any law or
Okay.
regulator approval in India for organization to sell information or data or PII.
On PIA. DPDPA is the only law which you can refer to. Okay. It says consent. If the consent is informed consent and you have a data monetization as a possible purpose which the data principle has given a consent, I feel there is no other law required. If you misrepresent, then that is a problem. But if you correctly present it and get a consent, it should be okay. That is what we call it as a data monetization policy here.
Any more
We
questions?
can take final question for this session.
I know the topic is a little off the track
Yeah.
for most people who think privacy from a data
Okay, here is
technology
a-
side or a law
Here
side.
we
Yeah.
have final question, sir. Yeah.
We were talking about acquisition from this one. When we are sourcing the personal data, which comes with a condition that it cannot be sold, as far as they are concerned, is it subject matter of this valuation again, or can we convert this personal data into non-personal and then value it? What is the proper method that could be?
See, if the consent is for consumption, whatever value consumption can give, that is the reason why you are buying it at a price. Fine. Okay. You cannot sell it, obviously. Therefore, its value is limited to consumption. And if the purpose is one-time use, it is only one-time use. If the purpose is multiple use, maybe you can keep on using it multiple times. So purpose defines the consumption also. Okay, what is the second part you said?
Second part, can I convert into...
Okay. Anonymize it. Okay. This, many of the privacy activists may not fully agree with me. People sometimes say, anonymization also requires a consent. I'm sure many of you may actually have that kind of a view. Okay. My view is, anonymization is actually removing the personal data from the category of personal data and taking it outside. I don't think there is a separate consent required. In fact, you are increasing the security of that because once for all, you are preventing the misuse of the personal data. Of course, if your anonymization technique is imperfect, that is different. Assuming that there is a proper standard way of anonymization, it will actually be a value addition to the personal data holder because at least my personal data is forever protected, at least in that context. So I feel it should not be considered as an unacceptable thing, but I'm sure many GDPR people will not easily agree with me on that. They'll say consent is required even for anonymization. Okay. Let me agree to disagree with such people. Yeah. Pardon? Improper anonymization is like a failure of security. Now, suppose you say encryption. Now, if you go to HIPAA in High-Tech Act, it says breach of encrypted data is not considered a breach. Am I correct? But if you say, what if encryption is bad? You can decrypt it. Then there is a weakness in the security measure you have adopted. Second, there is an intention of a person who decrypted it or de-anonymized it. That is a crime. That is, I have used a particular standard, reasonable security I have applied and I have released anonymized data. You are more intelligent than me, you use all techniques and de-anonymize it. It is like a hacker trying to override the security. I feel they should be punished for that. I should be punished if I am not reasonable in terms of anonymization. So there has to be a standard to determine whether I am reasonable or not. Above that standard, if breaking is possible, that should be considered as an unreasonable thing. Don't expect me, because I can't protect a quantum computing to be used to break the anonymization. So law should make the distinction, which was there in the earlier version of the PDPB. So it may come again. de-anonymize it. No, I said two things. One is weakness in anonymization technique, which enables a de-anonymization. Then a de-anonymizer who has a malicious intention of breaking the security. That should be handled by the cyber crime laws. And this should be handled by security laws. There is reasonable security. What is reasonable standard of anonymization? Security people will have to determine that and say. Okay, so between these two, you can handle this kind of a situation. There is, at present, this law doesn't say anything, but GDPR specifically says anonymized data is outside GDPR. So if you take that, even Indian law, you can assume that.
Okay, so I think.
One last question.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of cyber insurance, right? So now we talked about associating a value for data, monetary value for data. When we talk about cyber insurance and in the context of a company that is operating, let's say, in multiple geographies, what amount is the right amount? Or how do we come to that amount that, probably is the right amount?
If anybody is there from cyber insurance industry, I would like to ask, how are you giving a premium quote without knowing what is the value of the data? Today, they are determining premium based on the name of the company. If it is a good company, they will give a particular premium. But actually, insurance law does not permit that. If you are insuring an asset, the asset value is important. If you are insuring a car, what is the value of this car? Depreciated value, it is important. Whether it is owned by you or owned by a CEO of by Elon Musk doesn't matter. Insurance premium should be same. But it is not happening in cyber insurance. And if you don't do that, if you don't value data and take an insurance, what happens now? Then there is what is called a co-insurance which is happening. That is, suppose I have got 1 lakh worth of car, I insure it only for 50,000. Insurance law says for other 50,000 you will be considered as a co-insurer. So tomorrow if there is a damage of 20,000 rupees, insurance company will pay 10,000 rupees, other 10,000 rupees you are supposed to do. This is the insurance law. So when you don't value the corporate data asset and try to go for an insurance, you are open to this risk. Insurance company is not bothered because that is a contract where it's a uberime fide contract we say. Okay, that is all responsibilities are on the insurer to declare the correct value of this thing or something like that. And only when the claim is raised, the company will say, no, you had 100 crores worth of asset, you insured it only for 10 crores, you have given a wrong declaration, so I will only give it for 10%. Law cannot defend you.
So the downside of not valuing data assets correctly, and with that, I think we'll come to the end of this. We're already running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This and even in the company circles as well as the accountant circles, we have to debate it further.
Thank you so much for an intellectually stimulant discourse, sir. And we truly appreciate with the unwavering support of the participants present of offline and online. I extend my deep felt gratitude to you, sir. We truly appreciate your accomplishments and expertise in your profession, and also the brevity and precision with which he was presenting the highly thoughtful, thought-provoking kind of discourse. Thank you so much, sir. I invite Mr. Shekhar to facilitate our guests on the stage. Sorry, sir, Mr. Shankar. That was my fault. Sorry for that, sir. Now over to Ms. Satya for the quiz moments. Please, ma'am.
To this? Okay.
Valuation, it's actually valuation word is there. What do you think? A could be our answer, na? There's a valuation word there.
It is C. Yeah. Because the question is, why do organizations need to value data assets, right? So the first one is just a kind of marketing thing. But C gives the entire detail that increase the visibility of data assets for all stakeholders by facilitating value of maximization of the data assets. So C is the answer.
The word, keyword is? Keyword, what is the keyword there? Valuation anyway, it's there in the question answer. Okay, anything else? Visibility, is it there? Okay, okay. So now I think we give it back to Ramesh. Murthy then? Yeah?
Should
See?
we?
Okay.
Agreed?
Murthy gets it. Yeah. Please gift. Okay, next question. Answer is the C only. Thank you. Thank you for additional explanation and help. Next one. Ready? Ah. This might be tough, I guess, huh? Yeah.
True?
You have any other question?
True, false.
No, no. You have any other question?
There is no 50-50.
Navya, you have
Don't
another
ask
question?
the 50-50.
No, no, that's okay. That's why I'm saying go on. Next question. No, okay, then I'll ask. Okay, that's an easy question, yeah. It is true. All the entire stories about DGPCA, you say true only, na? This one. Huh? It is? D. Why D?
D. Reception process power. Actually, data price is not IoT device, right? Hello. Yeah, IoT device.
want to hear
price
different
is
answers.
an IoT device. Is an insufficient processing power of this. You have to connect it between the IoTs.
So IoT equipment doesn't have sufficient processing power. That's why D is the right answer. Yes, sir?
So answer is D, insufficient processing power. One of the reason is you try to incorporate the cryptographic mechanisms, right? So it also consumes a lot of power. So it, depending on the kind of how strong the algorithms are, right? So it's one of the key challenges when you talk about privacy.
But data storage is also a possibility, no? Correct? That is also a possibility. Okay, the word is, keyword is?
So I think so C should be ideal. Inadequate security measures will cover all three.
Okay. Yeah. See? So we got a debate now. Okay, good. People are waking up.
Wow, that is what is
Okay.
interesting.
I think it's C, it's inadequate security measure. Yeah.
Okay, C is the answer, it seems. Okay, what is the answer? Yes, how many people say C now? Okay. You told first, you keep that. Okay. How many people said D? Okay. Any others? Yeah. Who is saying yeah?
Wow. So B is left out then. Yeah, all of the above.
A because very limited connectivity. That means it's little difficult to access. Yeah.
It's IoT. Practically IoT is called connected device. Called connected device. You can't say not connectivity, sir. Sorry. Doesn't work. Anything else? It's B. It's B. B or D? B. Limited data storage. Okay. So we get all the answers.
We got, yeah.
Shall we see the answer? There is.
Oh.
Who said the C first? Okay. Gets it.
Here.
Say your name on the mic.
So hi, I'm Amar Prusti. I'm a infra architect.
That's why you could.
Amar is our old
answer.
member of CSA. Yeah. Congrats. So C is the final answer, sir.
So nice to hear that you're all paying attention still after the good lunch too.
And also session. Okay, now I think before we go on to the next session, I think there was a request from the group for 2 minutes before we go on to IoT.